Hello everybody and welcome to one of our first reviews on the channel. I'm your host Lupus X, and today we're going to be bringing you guys the Tier 6 Premium Cruiser from the British, the Sirius? I'm not sure how to pronounce that. If I'm incorrect, please show me how to pronounce this thing in the comments. I would prefer to pronounce this thing correctly. But otherwise, it's the new ship that was just part of the Lost Sea event. It was one of the more clear staples for the ships that's not on PC, so it's currently a Blitz exclusive ship. And I'm showing you guys this high-grade coal setup with the other supplies here to kind of show you guys the way I have this set up currently. I set up the high-grade coals because it's supposed to reduce your surface detection, so I'm adding in that along with the surface detection module itself, traverse, and DPM, which is one of my first setups. And I'll also show you guys my second setup, which is actually my current setup for the Fiji, which is kind of more of an offensive setup for me. It's kind of more so DD deletion only type of thing instead of being a more hidden opportunist setup the way this is set up. This is more of an opportunist setup the way I had to have it now with the concealment. And then the next setup I'm about to do, which with the acceleration gear for the second and the traverse gear for the third, is more of an offensive DD deletion type of deal build there. And I'd say for me, those are my two personal builds that I like the most because I feel like they complement the British cruiser playstyle very well. They give the cruisers a good time to stop and go. They can stop and go in smoke. They can be very concealable. They can move in and out of their concealment like destroyers. They have the single fire torp. So I think those are probably my best ones. If you guys have more ideas as to what type of ones you like, leave them down in the comments section, because I'm pretty sure other people would love to hear other types of different experiments you guys came up with that actually work for you guys, because I noticed not everything that works for me will work for you guys as well. But also we're going to go through a couple different scenarios as where I describe the Sirius and what the Sirius can actually do in terms of its armament and its escort abilities. Now, for the ship and elite skill wise, I went more so for elite for the escort skill. And the reason why I went for the escort skill, which is that one, is the main battery traverse, which is 7%, and the AA buff, as well as a few other buffs as well, the traverse maybe, and instead of the full-on AA buff. The reason why I went for this is because in pub matches at tier 6, you honestly, for me, I don't see a whole lot of carriers. So I was like, well, for me, this makes much more sense to go for the escort modernization than go for the pure anti-aircraft deletion, because what if I don't see carriers? Then my whole elite skill is at for nothing. So I was like, well, in order to cover the best ground, because I play pub matches mostly, I don't really play ranked, then I would do the whole cruiser modernization setup. And then if I ever wanted to play ranked, then maybe I might sell the ship and then rebuy it and then end up getting the skill, changing the skill instead of paying gold, because you can do that. You can sell the ship, ask for the ship back, and then, you know, instead of paying for it with gold to get it back, just go ahead and just rebuy it back with the amount of credits you sold it for and then redo the skill. That works. It's just very time consuming. It's not very time consuming. It's very tedious action. But with the Sirius, just to get down into it, it is a very escort-like ship, meaning that if you're expecting the big damage numbers, she isn't quite that ship right now. So keep in mind, this is pre-buff. We are talking about some buffs maybe in the future with the developers of the game. But as of right now, don't really expect much of very big numbers with the ship unless you're going to be using torpedoes for the most part, which will get you those bigger numbers at times in frames. Because what I've noticed, if you just use guns most of the time, you'll get around 20 to 30k depending on your aiming, your penetration, and everything else along with it. But you'll get around 20-30k if you spend the whole 6 minutes of your time basically using your guns the whole time, which will not give you a big damage number like the whole 60 and 70k games. This is not a very carryable ship. So if you're looking for a ship that can possibly carry a match, currently that's a no. She's a very team dependent ship at this moment, and which that means is in the beginning of the match, especially in the first 3 minutes, you need to really be focusing on giving your teammates the best support as you can to avoid sending many of their teammates seeing them go underneath the water. If you can perform your escort duties well by destroying and deleting destroyers in the beginning of the matches, you'll find that the battleships will have a better job at protecting you and more hit points, so they can actually tank a few shots from the battleships without you getting in the crossfire, as long as you're not putting yourself in the crossfire, I should say, as the disclaimer there. But she is very good at her escort duties, and she is the only tier 6 ship, if you guys can think about it for a second, she's the only tier 6 ship that comes with anti-aircraft 2, especially at this tier. This is tier 6. Not a whole lot of ships come with an anti-aircraft perk at tier 6. Think about the Leander, for instance, which is its counterpart and what it's compared to most of the time. The Leander doesn't have an AA perk, if you guys remember correctly. The Leander only has smoke. So you don't really get the anti-aircraft perk, and you only get anti-aircraft 1 at the Fiji at tier 7. You get the tier 2 anti-aircraft perk at tier 6, which makes it god tier for almost facing down, you know, for facing down aircraft carriers. Now, I haven't ran a complete AA build yet for those of you guys that are very curious as to, okay, so if I run a complete AA build against a carrier, what would that do? All I can say is, well, you're probably going to end up watching a lot of planes fall to the sky like confetti. But that's just my opinion at the moment. I'm not sure if that's actually going to be true or not. But based off of what I'm seeing from so far with me not having the AA skill, I think it's a pretty close bet to say that she can delete planes pretty darn well, and that's probably an understatement for me saying pretty well. But she is very much an opportunist like a British ship. She carries that opportunist-like nature where you need to plan your attacks beforehand. You can't just jump in the middle of a battle like a German can, and you can't just also torp down something from full health to 0 health like a Japanese cruiser. You have to plan your skills and plan your attacks accordingly, because if you don't plan your attacks and you're very reactionary to a situation without planning what you're doing and how you're going to get out of the situation, you're going to find yourself more underneath the water than above the water, more in your port and not in the battle. It's very important for an escort ship like this with weaker armor that you have and plan your attacks accordingly before time. And you see, especially in these videos, I'm going to be rotating in and out of different areas. You'll notice I'm not staying in one area. The biggest thing I believe for the ship that will kill a lot of people is the factor that they get stuck on tunnel visioning in the aim down the sight, that they forget there's battleships nearby and they end up getting citadel to nothing. It is the biggest thing. You have to be very much situationally aware. What I mean by situational awareness in this factor, guys, because I know a few of you guys may ask me this in the future, is what do I mean by situationally aware? It means you have to be paying attention to what the battleships are looking at, and if the battleships have a complete broadside on you. If you're standing completely broadside 180 degrees toward that battleship, they will not hesitate to kill you, especially if I see you doing that. I will not hesitate to precise aim you down and get you. Just keep in mind, for those of you guys that are wondering, well, what kind of ships would actually be doing that? Well, take, for instance, you have the Warspite, which has 381mm cannons that can basically almost one-shot a Königsberg with a few citadels. And then you have the Fusos, which can precise aim you down. You have New Mexico's at that tier, and not to mention your tier 6. So you're going to be facing tier 7 ships. So you got the Colorado that has 4 10mm cannons. You have the Nagato, you have the Schornhorst, you have the Gneisenau. Like, you have so many battleships and ships that are able to kill you, and easily at that bat. So you have to be very much careful, and which is one of the reasons why I recommended the 2 builds I was running earlier. And this is kind of just to show you guys just how well a concealment build works. Now, I have this ship standing next to me. Watch how long it takes for me to get detected. I'm literally doing this on purpose. I wanted to see, with my torpedo tubes launched, not firing at all. This is how you play detection. I didn't fire one bit. Look how long it takes for the battleships to notice me get detected. Watch the screen. I just got detected. Look how long the battleships were shooting at the Königsberg, and then it takes them a while even after that to even start firing at me. But I think that's just because auto aim and the way auto aim is set up. I took a really big salvo here and there, and that's when I noticed, okay, I've had enough fun doing that. I go ahead, pop smoke, and begin using that. Now, with this ship, it is a good idea to train your British cruiser captains. Get that Mistweaver. Mistweaver is going to save you a lot of grief later on, because you get to hide in your smoke a little bit longer. Keep in mind, you want to keep moving throughout your smoke, because if you stay in one spot in your smoke, people are going to blind fire your smoke. So don't think because you're in smoke that just means you're impervious to damage. Nope, people can still sometimes get lucky, or if they're good at tracking you, because I've noticed I've gotten really good at tracking ships in smoke after watching people catch on fire. don't think we won't try to shoot in there. So keep moving, pivoting constantly. And now I'm using Aqua's War Spite right now to tank damage for me. So you notice me, I'm basically staying at level with him right now, so the ship can't aim at me. So you can say this is like little brother, big brother tactic here, but it's perfect tactics for playing in a division. This is a division worthy ship. Like, the best way I can describe it is she's a puzzle piece ship. And what I mean by a puzzle piece ship is that she plays very well when you have a ship that can complement her skills and that can give her protection. If you can sit behind a war spite, or you can retreat back to a battleship or someone that has higher DPM than you are as a cruiser, and you can lead them into traps, then this makes this ship all the more viable to you, because you can use your guns and keep your guns firing at targets without having to worry about being focus fired down. Because believe me, when people find out that the Sirius is as weak in the armor as it is, trust and believe they will try to precise aim you out. And this is probably one of my most favorite games here. I am with my buddies Nimitz and Aqua from Founders here. Nimitz has just changed his name to Rex, so if you don't recognize his name when it pops up when he gets kills, that's the reason why. But I got a couple good friends right here from Founders right here as we take down Bay of Storms, the newest map that just got put out, I believe last update, I believe it was. And it is one of the most close quarter maps I think I've ever seen. I don't think I've ever seen so much carnage happen on one map except Golden Channel. But Golden Channel can have its ins and outs at times, especially with the battleships and so on and so forth. But you notice that I'm going to play it to ear, because if you guys notice by looking at the screen, there's 4 battleships. Not even that, there's 5 battleships. And so I already know I'm at a complete disadvantage here. And so this is where you have to understanding the chemical makeup of the team, chemical makeup quotations, of the team, and understand what does that mean for your ship. Now, that doesn't mean you should just do that for the Sirius. You should honestly be doing that for all your ships, but especially for the Sirius, because like I said, being in this ship, you're going to get focus fired down most of the time, especially when people find out how easy this thing is to kill, especially with a good salvo to it. Now, you notice that we're playing pretty cautiously, and we're looking for the destroyers to make the pushes, because destroyers will sometimes make general pushes in certain areas and make them a little bit too quick because they're used to YOLOing battleships. And this is where you use your little bit of cautiousness to your ability to delete the destroyers first and free up your battleships from any type of torpedoes. This way that you can use your battleships to hide behind, or also to get back and back toward. You have support for dealing with those bigger capital ships that are on the other team. Because there's one thing I definitely don't want to take, and that's the 12 300 some millimeter guns of a New Mexico, especially 12 of those. There is no reason for me to take that many shots. And as you notice, I'm still playing very, very flexible here. I'm not striving in a straight line for too long, and that's something a lot of cruiser players do too much of, is driving in too long of a straight line. You need to be constantly switching directions with the ship, and this is exactly the reason why she does perform excellent escort duties. She carries that beautiful acceleration and beautiful traverse speed of the British cruisers. So that means your mobility is on par with a lot of destroyers. So you can keep up with destroyers, and not as well, you can also use both sides of your torpedoes and also avoid battleship fire like I do with this bot New York. Now, granted, this is a bot New York, and I wasn't really expecting all these torpedoes to hit, because you know how bots work in this game. Fortunately enough, this bot actually plays someone like a human, so I was actually able to get both salvos off, and both salvos actually do hit. But this is just the beautiful speed and traverse of the British cruisers, and this is exactly the reason why you should not, especially in these cruisers, be playing in one direction. Now, as Nimitz and I have noticed, this side has definitely opened up some, because they have definitely been focusing down our battleships so much that this has given us and Nimitz enough time to actually go ahead and start taking and ripping apart different battleships. I'm already at 30k thanks to those torpedoes. So remember how I said before, if you're really looking for big damage numbers, you're really going to have to apply your torpedoes. But understand that if you don't want to go back underneath the water, you're going to have to know when to apply those torpedoes and apply them properly with the single fire or with the long spread. Now, as you see from our first couple of games, there is a good fire, pretty okay-ish fire chance at 2%, but don't really be expecting those fires, honestly. And like I said, this is so much of an escort ship. Nimitz and I, since we're both in a Sirius, we're just playing our roles as Aqua tanks damages for us. We're just playing our roles by putting fire chances as much as possible into those New Mexicos and Koenigs on the side over there, as we're beginning to push up and dealing with these ships as we're beginning to do the torpedo. Now you see the single fire torpedoes there. I'm gonna also launch my own single fire salvo there. Manages to dodge that one by giving a little bit of turn there, and I'm gonna land right in Nimitz's old smoke that he left from earlier. And luckily for me, I'm right in smoke, so I don't have to worry about anything, honestly. I'm gonna come through, start pushing again. As we get rid of the last ship here, I'm going to start my own smoke to give Aqua some cover as he gets away. Now, I'm not saying smoke can always be used to cover battleships, but I mean, it kind of stopped him from doing it, so it kind of works. And the Sirius, this is where the Sirius just excels at. It's just so much of a team player. It's a team helper all the way down. And that is the Sirius, guys. Hopefully you guys have learned and helped out with something here. I appreciate you guys for checking out the channel as always. If you guys have any questions as usual, leave them down in the comments section, and hopefully we'll be doing some more reviews pretty soon of these ship classes. I'm your host, Lucas X, and see you guys on the fair seas, captains.